I got a whole bunch of zines, but I'm going to try to get through them quickly. Zine number 1. Watch Him Bleed number 1. This is done by a young punk rock girl from Australia. She seems angry, upset, disillusioned by life. I can completely agree and understand all of that. She's been in a lot of not so great relationships, it seems. She has suffered some abuse. She has lived through a bunch of shit. She seems very strong, very punk rock. Still young, as far as I'm concerned. A bit young. Still has a lot of things to figure out about life, but she's getting there. A good writer. Not my favorite zine. I think if I was a young punk rock girl, I would be much more into it, but I did read it. I saw the picture of Sid and Nancy, and I almost put the zine down because it's the most ridiculous, overrated, stupid romantic love story that I totally used to be into, and now I just think it's bullshit. But I went ahead and read the text, and actually I'm going to read it here for you because I really enjoyed the text. It says this. It says the following. They say, of course, Courtney killed Kurt, and of course Nancy ruined Sid, and of course Yoko destroyed the bond between 4 men. Well, if that's the case, doesn't that say something about the strength of women? Doesn't that say, don't you dare fuck with us? And by blaming these women, you are empowering them. You are saying that your idols were so weak enough to be so easily destroyed. You are saying that these men you deem to be gods, well, they bowed down before the women in their lives. That's the best piece in the whole thing. And it doesn't glorify the Sid and Nancy romance, so I liked that. Overall, I give the zine, maybe we'll say a B. A B to a B minus. If I was 10 years younger, I would probably give it an A minus. It's a little bit age-wise under what I like to read, but not a bad zine. And I will post contact information. The next couple zines I'm gonna review, I cannot possibly give a fair assessment to because they are written by some of my absolute favorite people in the world. The first one here is Neck Monster 9 by Cheyenne Neck Monster, who resides in Kentucky. She's completely awesome. I played kickball with her once. I've also eaten Ethiopian food in Chicago with her, and it was a good time. Of all of her neck monsters, and I've read not all of them, but several of them, this one's my favorite. It's straight storytelling, a few drawings, mostly just words. It's good storytelling. It's well written. Cheyenne is in her late 20s, if that helps you at all. She talks about exercise. She talks about being a substitute teacher. She talks about puking. She talks about living through coldness, a cold winter. She talks about living in a punk house during a cold winter with no heat. She talks about her bike. She talks about, did I say substitute teacher? Those are some of my favorite stories, listening to people talk about being a teacher. It's a very tough job and one of the most important jobs there is in the world. She talks about her poor health issues, which I always want to give her a hug because I feel bad that she has health issues. It's a good zine. If you just like straight writing by a punk type person who is now entering adulthood, Neck Monster 9, hot off the presses. My other set, I got a trifecta, the short and queers. I got a three pack of short and queer. Kelly Short and Queer is one of my favorite people in the world. Former roommate, lifelong friend. What have we done? Some of the things I shouldn't even talk about. Some of the things that we've done. But we have driven from Denver to Portland and back. We've attended many zine fests. Kelly is straight up awesome. Issue number 12 of Short and Queer. Menstruation, not punctuation. It's all about periods. If you don't know Kelly, and if you've never read Short and Queer, Kelly was born a girly girl and is now a manly man with a deep voice like a lumberjack from Alaska. But back when he was a she, he had a period. This whole issue is about going through periods and having them, and your first periods and how they suck and how sometimes they're funny. And if you want to read about menstruation, you should get this. A bonus, there's a bunch of stories by Kelly, and then there's also other people's stories. So a whole bunch of different zinesters, Miss Nico, LB, Apollonia, Max, Sparrow, a whole bunch of different people wrote in about it. And check it out. You get that awesome picture of Kelly. Short and Queer number 13. Musical autobiography. Kelly talks about all the bands that he's listened to over the years, most of which completely suck. But the great thing about Kelly is that he indulges his total nerdiness. Do you want to listen to Kelly tell stories about New Kids on the Block? There you go. There's a few good bands in here that he listened to, mostly when he lived in Chicago and had the pleasure of knowing some good Chicago people with good musical tastes and some punk rock stuff, but mostly bad R&B, but really funny, well written, and interesting. Short and Queer number 14. Best thing that happened to me today. One of the greatest ideas that Kelly's come up with, and he's come up with quite a few great ideas. He keeps like a journal, like a diary of every day the best thing that happened today. So even when you're having like a bad day, probably some good stuff happened, right? So like just take a minute, think about what was the best thing that happened to you today. What was the best thing that happened to you today? Okay, so he makes a zine every now and then. This is maybe the 3rd issue of this. It's a compilation of all the best things from, I think this is all of 2009. So, for example, Square dancing was wonderful as usual. 6/25/09. Anna came by to have lunch with me in the office. Many of them are longer than that. Not something that I read cover to cover. Not something I read all the way through. Good bathroom material when you just sit down to take a shit and you want to read something for 30 seconds or 1 minute or whatever, depending on what you've eaten that day. You can read just like a page and then put it down and be on your way. The concept of this is great. So if you like Short and Queer, get the new Short and Queers. If you like good writing, get the new Neck Monster. If you like listening to punk rock girls that are fed up with men's shit, watch him bleed. Thanks much. Peace out.